So delighted to be joined today on the show by the director of St. Clare, Mitzi Peirone. Mitzi, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm great, thank you. And again, thank you for coming on. We got there in the end. The behind the scenes stuff, it's always fun. So your movie shown at FrightFest in London this year, St. Clare. I've been fortunate enough to get an early screener. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
How did you come to kind of adapt this? I know it's based on a book by Don Roff, Clare at 16. Had you read the book before, kind of get approached about the adaptation?
I had not read the book prior to being, asked about my availability and interest in potentially adapting it. Mostly because it's the title is Clare at 16, myself being a 32-year-old woman, and wasn't on my radar. But once I read it, I realized, oh yeah, no, I understand why the producers want to adapt it. It's definitely a very clever book with a lot of atmospheric that I resonated with. Myself being a Catholic schoolgirl, I had plenty of personal, influences and visual elements that I drew from. And the main task that I had set myself on was to graduate it from 16 to 20 something for Bella specifically. Bella and I wanted to work together on something else. We actually had a sci-fi set up during the pandemic. It fell apart. She and I became very close friends. And I knew what she wanted out of something like this. And I knew what I wanted to make sure that, that the core elements of the book remained, as far as having this like vigilante anti-hero type of young woman set on a mission. But this mission, of course, requires a great deal of solitude and at times violence and pain and ultimate sacrifices, as you've seen in the film. And the main mission, besides the graduating the material to a woman in her mid-20s, was also to influence it with, what makes the backbone of an anti-hero? How are they shaped into existence? And so I started thinking about, I started from the script. From the book. She goes to Catholic school. How has that influenced her? So I thought Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc, and I also thought religious iconography in our history. One of my favorite painters of all time is Artemisia Gentileschi. She's an Italian painter from the late 1500s, early 1600s, similar to Joan of Arc as far as timeline. And I'm like, did I get that wrong? I hope not. Anyway, I'm not a historian. You can fact check me later. But so I was thinking Artemisia Gentileschi, this basically the female Caravaggio. She at 17 was extremely talented, and somehow, because of the times, her father decided to get her a mentor, and this mentor ended up sexually assaulting her. At the time, she would have been forced to marry him, but instead she took him to trial, and it took her 8 months of excruciating tortures, thumb screws, and everybody testifying against her, including her own father, because he didn't want everybody to know that she was sexually assaulted, because at the time she would be considered impure and all of that. She, pushed through, won somehow, but ultimately had to leave Rome, moved to Florence. She became the first woman in history to join the Academy of Drawing in Florence, and her work is imbued with this experience. And you can see in her work that it's absolutely channeling feminine rage. One of her greatest paintings is Judith beheading Holofernes from the Old Testament, which is, she's a Bible heroine a biblical heroine that Caravaggio himself also tried to portray. But putting those two paintings next to each other, you'll see it's very, very fascinating to see how a woman who actually was subjected to violence is portraying a moment of violence versus how a man, Caravaggio also was a punk. Like, he got into brawls. I'm not saying that he didn't know what violence was, but you'll see that the difference is the woman portrayed two burly women feeling the fatigue of this murder. Instead, the Caravaggio version, the male version, has this like dainty, like almost like pinkies up, young woman holding a knife, a dagger that's 10 times bigger than her, and somehow something about the anatomy and the way that just the laws of physics aren't adding up to what actually this murder would be looking like. So I was definitely inspired by specifically female Renaissance art, and that went into the film as far as the use of chiaroscuro lighting, and also representing this dichotomy from an ethical standpoint, because Claire wants to do the right thing, which is eradicating evil from the world. At the same time, she becomes that very evil. So she's always torn apart by this dichotomy. And that was reflected, I think, in the aesthetic choices that we've made in the film. But then on top of that, from a literary standpoint, I infused all of the Joan of Arc quotes that I knew. The flames around me, the flames inside of me are brighter and bigger than the flames around me. I mean, that's crazy. That's such an inspirational thing to say, metaphorically, of course. To think that, to believe that what you have to say and what your legacy may be like, and your vision for your own self, and your mission, that whatever it is that guides you, the purpose that one might have in one's life, will that shine through the darkest moments of, you know, whatever it is that you may be facing. And I think moral clarity is becoming a lost value. And I think Claire, even though she definitely fits the paradigm of the Dexter-like vigilante anti-hero, I do think that seeing a young woman with such moral clarity that is strengthened by this moral clarity to the point where she doesn't fear anything, violence, death, and I mean violence, solitude, and ultimately even death. I think it's inspiring, and I think that we can have profound conversations around the film, but still watching something that's entertaining, and it fits in the genre thriller or action aspects.
Yeah. You said as well, obviously, Bella Thorne, you've been wanting to work with her for a while. She's fantastic in it, as Claire. You mentioned also the Joan of Arc quotes, and Claire she's repeatedly kind of quoting Joan of Arc throughout the movie. Do you see Claire almost in an aspect as like a freedom fighter side to her as well? Not just the vigilante side, but trying to maybe free herself from, without going into too many details, but what she's been through previously, what has affected her throughout her life?
Yeah, I definitely think that I'm struggling maybe to answer this question without talking about the film. I was like, oh yeah, in that moment when okay, so how can I talk about this without spoiling the film? I think that similarly to my first film, Braid, which came out as Nobody Leaves in the UK, I think that whether I like to or not, I always go back to somehow childhood trauma. I've been asked before, is this personal? I can't remember personally if I had any like particular childhood trauma, but it continues to pop up in my films, and I think in a way we are filmmakers inevitably expose themselves like morally in every way with everything. At least like I guess I have. I'm with the Tarkovskys of the world of there's no separation between my films, and I believe that. I want my films to have a soul, and otherwise I'm not gonna. Otherwise, I don't take the job. I'm trying at least my best to do that. But I think that what's fascinating about Claire and what's fascinating about my other characters in my first film is that there is kind of similarly to Lucifer, of like the fall from heaven a little bit. You know, like Lucifer being an angel, allegorically speaking, being an angel who gets thrown off from heaven and ends up ends up creating hell. I think that I believe that ultimately everybody is born good. I believe in that the people are more good than bad. But I do feel like similarly to the Joker, Claire does not feel like society is responding to the needs that she may have. and she has felt unsafe. She continues to see that type of neglect towards minorities of any kind, whether it be women, but I think anybody could be relating to that. And I feel like because of that, because she has this like moment at a very young age where she realizes, oh, humans are capable of such horror, humans are capable of such violence, I think that radicalizes her. I think that also there is an element of inexorability in the film. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but I do think that what she sees at the beginning becomes her fate in the end. There's similarities to how the film begins and how the film ends. And I think that stems from the idea of, which I agree with the idea of Greek tragedies. Once you spill blood, the blood will continue to stain future generations. It's very hard to break the cycles of violence. And I feel like whether in the good and the bad, what we do, our children, again, metaphorically, not necessarily our kids, but like the people after us will inherit. And we inherit what our parents or the people before us, the previous generations, in a way, have done. It's really hard. It's heroic, I think, to break the cycles of violence. And I think that it's so hard to not talk about the film. I think that her biggest challenge, her like big character arc, is to realize that eventually she too will have to be subjected to the same sentence that she puts everybody else under, if it makes any sense. That the same rules should apply if she's out eradicating evil, but then she becomes that evil. She's painfully aware of the fact that eventually her time will come too. And I think that was fascinating to tackle for somebody her age, character being a woman. I feel like it was fascinating for Bella and I to take that on.
And you said with the blood spilling that she's kind of undertaken, there's a few shots as well in the film where certain aspects are getting carried out, and you've got the red leaves that are really striking. There's one shot of so again, trying not to go too spoiler heavy, red lighting getting used a lot, and I think that's really effective of showing. It just kind of enhances the scenes where those are in play. Especially, I think the first point where I fully noticed it is there's a couple of different scenes in forests, but it just really stands out. It's really striking.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel like every answer is like, oh well, classical studies taught me this. It's just fascinating because I didn't go to film school, but truly I am so thankful. The older I get, I realize how lucky I've gotten to have gone to an Italian high school where they forced me to study Greek tragedies and translate from Greek and Latin and just memorize the Divine Comedy. And it was relentless, but it was so impactful. I remember at one point we were studying some Greek tragedy. I don't even know which one anymore, but we studied specifically the idea of how the weather or surroundings of a character can become anthropomorphic, so humanized, to reflect the state of mind of the character. And I feel like that is also well reflected in French expressionism. Like Matisse to me is one of the greatest geniuses of our history, because he turned the focus inwardly instead of constantly, after like hundreds of years of trying to emulate realism or reality, perfect sculptures that look humane to the point where like marble looks like it's melting because it looks so much like human flesh. Matisse was like, I don't care about what I see in front of me. I can see it. I want to know what that feels like. And he painted, the red room. I don't remember what it's called exactly, but there is, I think, a blend in St. Clair of the idea of anthropomorphic nature and anthropomorphic surroundings, that nothing matters but how you feel in that moment. So even if it's not raining, you're having a shitty day, it is raining inside of your head. And then the idea of expressionism, the idea of what we care the most is inward. What we care the most is how we perceive reality rather than what reality actually may be looking like from an objective standpoint, which is also up to debate. But anyway, I think that filmmaking is such a fascinating medium. I think it allows that. I think that genre filmmaking specifically allows that. And it's, if you think about the Divine Comedy, if you thought about it now, you would define a genre. It's supernatural, it's horror, it's action, thriller, and all of it. And I think that through genre filmmaking, we're allowed to grasp at higher concepts by making bold stylistic choices, which is something that just really got on my nerves when I made my first film, that some critics were talking about style over substance. It killed me. It really hurt me because it's insane that I have poured so much, so much of my soul, so much of my artistic cultural knowledge in that film, and it's still like some people are like, yeah, no, it's just a pretty film. I'm like, well, you're just a critic. It's just but you have to get used to that. It's the nature of the beast. But it's interesting to think about how some stylistic choices are perceived as just stylistic choices, but in reality there's like this well of information underneath it. And of course, if you don't bother to go seek and look and figure it out, or you don't catch it because you just like don't have like the eyes trained for it, I feel like people are quick to dismiss. But I'm glad that resonated, because I feel like because of the short schedule, we didn't have so many chances to be bold and ballsy. So I don't know if that's appropriate, but to be courageous with our choices, because stylistic filmmaking takes time objectively. When we were shooting Braid, I had 25 days. We were shooting 3 pages a day. St. Clair, 15 days. We were shooting 9 pages a day. So I definitely had to dial it back as far as what I like to usually do. But I think it worked out. I think that I'm happy that my second feature film was a little bit more accessible than my first. And I think that, yeah, like you said, nonetheless, the stylistic choices came through as like motivated by substance and motivated by themes, which is exciting.
Yeah, as to the impact of the scenes, I think, as well, just because it is so striking and it works. The work in tandem. Yeah, I think it was fantastic looking. So obviously it's embargoed still at the minute, but how have you found? I think you've had it at Taormina in Sicily. And how have you found the response and everything? Have you enjoyed just getting out there and showcasing it?
It was really exciting. It was beautiful to be in an ancient amphitheater, open air amphitheater on a summer night in Sicily. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better world premiere. Sicily has the same patron, Saint Agatha, who is the most depicted martyr in our history, because she suffered gruesome martyrdom. I don't need to get into it, but it just, everything felt very fitting. Especially because of all of the European references in the film, or European artistic influences. It felt fitting to be in the amphitheater. Anytime that I have a world premiere or a premiere, I feel like the Guernica horse when I'm watching the film, if it makes any sense. I'm just like, from the beginning till the end, I'm like clutching like myself. I'm being like, oh my God, like I can't believe this. I don't even know what I'm thinking. I'm just in a state of shock the entire time. And and then the film ends, people clap, they tell you it's great, and somehow you're still in this like warped place. But then one person comes up and they tell you something so specific that they would not have understood unless they had like watched the film and got it. And then it's like, oh, you're like freed from every burden. And that somebody always, at least so far, 2 out of 2, I've always had one person at the end of the premiere tell me something so specific about the film that it makes me realize, okay, this resonated with one person that truly understood it, and this is insane, and it's sacred, and it's a gift, and it's a miracle. So it was this woman. She goes up to me. She's like, "I'm a psychologist, and every theme and every nuance of the philosophical issues, the societal issues, the political issues, the gender issues, it all came through. And I was like, I'm released from any worry. The psychologist lady understood it. I'm good. But you know, it's like I said for Braid, there is always somebody having something nasty to say, and it's okay. I'll continue to make movies.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's being able to understand that you will have made an impact on someone, and you getting that one-to-one with them on that day, that must have been something. Especially as you said, in a beautiful setting. I've seen it before myself a good few years ago now. It's just the island itself is beautiful as well. So having that backdrop is just, it must just have been kind of exceptional. Really,
it was breathtaking.
And just to wrap up, obviously you've got FrightFest at the end of this month in London. Are you coming over for that? Are you looking forward to it?
I am. I'll be there the 24th, 25th, 26th.
Yeah, excellent. And is that, again, have you done FrightFest before?
Yeah, I was in there in person, but my first film, Braid, Nobody Leaves, was there in 2018. Long time ago. I don't want to think about it.
I said I absolutely love the movie. Looking forward to other people getting to see it, react into it. And again, thanks very much for your time today. Really enjoyed talking to you, and good luck with it.
Same. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.